What's up, everybody? Answers time. Let's just dive right into it. I'm prepared, personally. I've got some delicious vapor here to puff on as I ponder these deep questions. And I've got a gigantic 32-ounce frosty, this has been in the freezer, mug of Newcastle Brown Ale. I can't think of a way to be more prepared to start a Q&A video. I hope I don't have to pause this to refill that, but that's delicious. Anyway, I'm going to start off here at the beginning and answer some of the questions that were asked most frequently. And I'm going to bundle them together a little bit and try and get those out of the way here at the start to kind of give you, and it'll be good to kind of catch up with you guys since I haven't seen or talked to you in some time. So by far, the most frequently asked question was, where have you been? What have you been up to? And then right after that was questions about my previous video, the video I made before my long break that I called Paranoia. People wanted to know how I was doing, if I was okay, if I had figured any of that out, or if any of that had changed. So I'm going to kind of wrap that up into one answer here and try and give you guys an idea of what I've been up to. So if you've seen that, if you've seen that video Paranoia, then you're probably intuitive enough to know that that was me in a very bad place in my life. I had recently come to a realization that had made my life a little scarier. I don't know a better way to put it than that. And the realization was this. I've talked here on my channel about how I've struggled with anxiety and depression for much of my my life. Since I can remember, I have struggled with those things. And I had tried different types of treatment, which I've also talked about here on this channel. I've been to doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors. I've been on a whole litany of drugs, and none of those things worked for me. And so I had kind of, over the last 5 years of my life, come to this place where I said, look, this depression, this anxiety is a part of me. It's part of my personality, and it's part of my reality. It's part of my personal truth. This is something that I'm going to have. And I'm smart and intuitive enough to maintain that. Okay, so I know what it is. I've identified what it is. I can maintain it at this level, and it'll still be a problem for me, but I can live with it. And as most times, as is true with most times that I've told myself I'm I'm smart enough to make some big decision like that, I was wrong. The realization that I had come to prior to making that Paranoia video was that I was not maintaining, that I was in fact getting worse year to year, month to month, sometimes even week to week. My depression and anxiety were worsening and starting to intrude in more noticeable ways on every aspect of my life that's important to me: my job, my family, my friends, my marriage, most importantly. I noticed all of those things were deteriorating. All of those things were being negatively affected by this, and I was getting worse. And that was a scary time for me because I had tried. It would be one thing if I had never tried any type of treatment, if I had never tried to talk to anybody about it or to take any drugs to manage it. But I genuinely tried those things, and they did not work for me. And so I had this panicked kind of 3 or 4 months where I was living with this knowledge that I'm getting worse and wondering, what does that mean? What does that mean for me? And it all kind of culminated in me making that video, and it's a very hard video, Paranoia, for me to watch because I'm pretty good, I think, at mask. Look, I'm emotive, and you can tell when I'm pissed or hurting, but I'm pretty good at masking the severity of my own mental state sometimes. And I can see it in myself that I was really just in a desperate place. And it's a hard video for me. I've only watched it one time, and it's a hard video for me to watch. But it was a positive thing, I guess, because watching that video that one time and seeing that kind of desperation and hearing that desperation in myself, you know, kind of kicked me in the ass to try one more time, because what was the alternative? That I was just going to slowly but surely get worse and worse and worse and lose all of the things that I love, my marriage, lose my job, have no friends, you know. And so I decided to give it one more try, and I lucked out. Now, I don't want to talk too much about the process that I've been going through over the last 8 or 9 months, and I like to be candid on this channel. I think that's what makes these Q&A videos interesting to a lot of you that like them. So it's not out of secrecy or anything. It's just the process that I'm going through is it's a tentative process, and I don't want to damage it, if that makes any sense. I don't know that sharing a whole bunch of details about it would damage the process, but I don't want to take that chance right now. Suffice it to say that I lucked out and found a counselor. This person is not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. They're a licensed counselor that genuinely cares about me, and who has a style of therapy that is really compatible with me, the way my brain works. But I think the fact that he genuinely cares about me and cares about seeing me getting well is a huge positive thing, and I think that's the main part of it. So for those of you that watched that video and identified with it, I'm not in a place where I can give you advice, because a lot of people have said, oh, I feel exactly like you felt in that video, and I'm wondering if you have any advice. I'm not in a position where I would feel comfortable giving anybody advice. What I will tell you is that after years and years and years of trying different doctors and drugs, I finally found one that feels like it's working for me. I'm happier now and more well-adjusted now than I have been in years. And that doesn't mean that I don't rant and rave and get pissed off about the things that are going on. It's that I've gained at least a small ability to put that sort of thing into perspective, just perspective in general, and into perspective with regards to what can I do about it, and how much should I allow that to affect my life and my happiness. And I've gotten, you know, I've gained some of that ability, and it's all due to me finding a counselor that understands and cares about me. So if you're in that position, I guess I could recommend that if you have the means, try. And if you find a shitty doctor, and I can almost guarantee you will, given my own experience, try another one. I don't know. But as for what I've been doing, I'll wrap another question up. A lot of people asked me about a lot of people thought this was a hookah. This is an electronic cigarette mod. I've got several of them now. I've been vaping for a little over a month, and I haven't had a cigarette in that time. I feel better. You know, I wake up and I'm not stuffed up with a giant headache and coughing up, you know, various brown and green substances every day. It's gross, but it's the truth. I feel a whole lot better. It works really well for me. I don't know, to be honest with you, enough about it to really make recommendations, but search for electronic cigarette on Reddit. There's a whole subreddit if you're a Redditor. There's a whole subreddit dedicated to these. If you're a smoker and you're looking to try and do these, I recommend that you go there. If you don't want to do the Reddit thing, there's a couple of guys here on YouTube that I subscribe to that were really helpful when I first started this. I will put their channels down below in the description. One of them is named Grim Green, and one of them is named P. Basardo. And so I'll put so if you just want to do the YouTube thing, they have some great tutorials and product reviews that were really helpful for me to get into it. But I'm not gonna be that guy that's been doing something for a week and gives everybody sage advice. So go find out for yourself about it. But yes, vaping is what I'm doing. I'm personal vaporizer and e-juice. Anyway, moving on to the next question. And I'm going to take these little opportunities between questions to, have a vape and a sip of my delicious beer. Paul, how do you feel about monogamy? Does it make sense that the majority of serious relationships are monogamous? How do I feel about monogamy? I feel about monogamy just about the way I feel about any other part of other people's sexual lives, and that is I really don't care. I mean, it works for me. I'm in a monogamous relationship. It works for me, and I can't see myself being in an open relationship and having that work for me. So it works for me. Now, it may not work for you. You may be into something else. And see, this gives me a springboard to talk about something, because I get a lot of these, like, what do you think about this sexual subculture? And what do you know? And I've never really answered any of those questions because I genuinely don't care, if I'm honest with you, everybody. And that is one of the things that makes me feel kind of disconnected from the culture that I live in, because we live in a culture that is, for lack of better terminology, like sex obsessed. Like everybody is dying to know who's fucking who and which celebrity is sucking which other celebrity's dick and who slept with what and how, and this guy, and then even amongst their own friends, it's like who's fucking who and who's having sex with who. And I've never cared about that sort of thing. Like what goes on in other people's bedrooms. The only aspect of that I care about is that they're free to do it, so long as it's amongst consenting adults. Like, that's the only thing I care about, is that nobody tries to infringe on your right to practice whatever sexual, as long as it's consensual, whatever, sexual gratification you need to get, go get it. But I've never had that interest. A lot of people, and this was months and months ago, at the time of one of my last Q&As, I had tons of people asking me about the whole Bananagate thing. And the Amazing Atheist made a video that he intended to be private, and it ended up getting released to the internet. I never watched the whole thing, but I saw screen caps of it, and apparently he sticks a banana in his ass. And people were like, what do you think about Bananagate, deviant sexual behavior, and what do you think less of And I didn't answer any of those questions because I didn't think I could make it interesting, because I genuinely don't give a fuck. Like, I don't care that TJ put a banana in his ass. Like, if that's what floats his boat, have at it, and that's the way I feel about monogamy. There are a lot of people that have problems with the idea of monogamy. They think that monogamy is impossible for humans to, or almost impossible for humans to faithfully observe and all of that. And look, I don't care. I don't care if you're monogamous. I don't care if you're not. It works for me, and I've known people that it has seemed to work for. For other people, it seems to not work. But do what makes you happy. Do what you're comfortable with, I guess, is how I feel about monogamy. Have you ever played a pen and paper RPG? If so, which one, and did you enjoy it? No. I've never played a pen and paper RPG, but I've always desperately wanted to. For those that don't know, a pen and paper RPG would be like Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm not going to pretend to understand it because I've never played it, but I have some insight into it. And it allows me to talk a little bit and tell a little bit of a story here. So if you don't mind. So pen and paper RPGs, hold on one second, are like, they're like Dungeons and Dragons, right? Where a bunch of guys sit around a table together, and one of them is a dungeon master, and he kind of quarterbacks the whole experience for everybody. And you have a character that you're playing, and you have to make decisions and fight, and you might die. And from my understanding, when you die, you're dead for good. But there's no, it's not a video game. It's just you sitting around with a pen and a paper and a character sheet, and you make these decisions. And I've always wanted to try and play one, but I've never had the opportunity. I've never had a group of friends that were into it. I did, however, LARP once. Now, For those of you that are unaware of what LARP means, it stands for live action role playing, and it's based a little bit on the same kind of rules as a pen and paper RPG is. You create a character. The only difference is that you're not sitting around the table rolling dice and hanging out with a bunch of guys who are playing a character. You actually embody that character with a bunch of other people that are doing the same. And how I got into this was there was one video, one Q&A video I made where I talked about a guy that I was friends with back in high school named Mike, who turned out to be a pathological liar. But Mike approached me one day. This was back when we were still friends. Mike approached me one day, and he said, Paul, I wanted to invite you to this thing. I think you'd be interested in it. And he explained it to me. It was called Vampire the Masquerade, and it was a LARP game where people pretended to be vampires. Now, there were a couple of things that instantly entered my mind when he was explaining this to me. Number one, I was like, I'm not even remotely into the idea of walking around, pretending to be a vampire. That does not appeal to me. But there was this other, smaller, quieter, but much more seductive idea that entered into my brain, which was this place is going to be chock full of like super hot goth chicks. They're going to be everywhere. Like goth chicks as far as the fucking eye can see. They're going to be all over the place. And I could be like right in the midst of them. And maybe I could get laid if I go to this. And so I made this fucking ridiculous decision to go and attend this LARP party, okay? This LARP extravaganza. And so he goes, okay, you're going to come. So he helps me build my character. Now, in this Vampire the Masquerade game, apparently vampires exist in a bunch of different clans of vampires. And see, look, I have a mind like a steel trap, okay? So if it seems like I know a lot about this, it's because when I get something in there, it's hard to get it out. There are different clans of vampires. There's like Bruja, right? And they're kind of like rebels, anarchists kind of the vampire world. And then there's one of the clans is Nosferatu. And then Nosferatu clan, kind of based around that old movie, the old horror movie with Max Schreck in it, Nosferatu. You've probably seen the cover with him, like, pretty much everybody's at least seen the cover of Nosferatu. But this clan is like, they're twisted. So when they become vampires, it twists them and makes them into this gnarled, nasty-looking being. And so the Nosferatu vampires, they live in the sewers. And they're like spies of the vampire world, right? They're information dealers. They can go invisible, and they spy on other people, and they have the ability to look normal to the outside world. They can cast a spell themselves to make them. And I'm sorry, look, if there's Vampire Masquerade people, I'm not making fun. This is how I feel. They can cast a spell on themselves to look like a normal person, but in actuality, they're this twisted kind of demon-looking thing. And so I'm flipping through the pages of the different types, and I wanted to be a Nosferatu. It was the only one that sounded even remotely interesting to me. And it was the only one that I felt I could remotely even pull off, because a lot of them are like, there's the Toreadors, right, who are supposed to be, I think they're the ones that are like super beautiful. You know, like even the men or the male or female vampires are super sexually attractive to everybody. And I was like, I can't pick that one, right? I can't be a fucking Toreador, because that's not. I mean, look, I'm an actor. But there's only so much you can't act man tits away. You know, you can't act chubby little, high school sophomore away. You can't act that. And so I was really only interested in being a Nosferatu. And so I took the book back to Mike, and I was like, okay, I want to be one of those. And he goes, dude, don't pick anything other than a Nosferatu, please. And I was like, why? It's like, you don't want to, just trust me, you don't want to be a Nosferatu. Nobody likes them. And I was like, that's cool. I like that. I don't want to just stand around and talk about how goth we all are. Like, I want there to be some intrigue. I want to stir. And he's like, okay, that's fine. So he helps me make my character sheet. And, we go to this vampire party. I rode with him at this point. And we are driving into town, and we're kind of out on the outskirts of town in a very upscale area of town. And he drives up to this big mansion. Now, I'm not talking about just a big, nice house. I'm talking about an actual, like, mansion. 2 stories. Looks like a fucking stereotypical mansion. Has a gate that you have to buzz yourself in, and then it automatically opens, and a big driveway, big arched I mean, like, you've seen these types of houses in the movies, right? These huge palatial kind of, like, why the fuck would you ever need a house like this type of house? Big fountain out in front. Big swimming pool in the back. Mansion. So we pull up to this, and he's got the code to the gate, so he lets himself in. We go, and there's all these cars there. And we walk in, and the first thing I noticed was that it was kind of a sausage fest, which was really disappointing. There were a few girls there, but mostly it was dudes, and they were all dressed to the nines. Like some of them were wearing, like, I don't know how to describe it, like kind of tuxedo coats and like those rings. Have you ever seen the rings that like aren't just on your finger like a ring? They cover the whole finger and kind of go and wrap around the wrist. So they're like, they greet us at the door, and they're like, come in. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And so anyway, I kind of when you do this LARPing thing, you have to create a character for yourself, right? And so I had created this character of mine that, like, he got off on the fact that other people were repulsed by him. Like, he hated this whole vampire society thing. He hated the politeness and the clothes. And he just wanted people to not want him around. But because of vampire politics, they kind of had to let him be around, right? And the vampire politics thing, I won't go into that. Well, I will. I'll have to at some point. But anyway, I get there, and I'm kind of milling around, and there's a certain symbol that you have to put on yourself to show your... I can't remember what it was. Like, you have to make a hand gesture to show that you either look normal as a Nosferatu, like the twisted demon Max Shrek Nosferatu, or you've thrown up your human look. And I was like, walking in there, I was like, dude, I'm going to let everybody know that when I'm amongst other vampires here, I'm not going to bother looking like a fucking human. And so whatever the symbol was, because you had to kind of like when you walked up to somebody, you just gave them a quick flash of the symbol to let them know that you're, glamour thing. You either look like a human or you look like yourself. So I'd throw them that quick symbol, and they... So every time I walked up to meet somebody, they'd see me throw up the symbol, and they were like, they had to react that way because in character I looked like a nasty, twisted, hairy, humpbacked, thing. And so it's really like none of them liked it. And I could tell that none of their characters liked it, but none of them liked it either because I just didn't give a fuck about all the, I don't know how to put it, a lot of poncery going on. If you get it was just like, oh yes, and then what do you think about the political situation in the north of the state, and blah, blah, and I was just like, hey guys, and so everybody hated me. But I found out eventually after traveling around and talking to this mostly male vampire gathering that there was one other Nosferatu that played the game in my area, and that he was there. And I wanted to meet this guy. I was like, dude, we could totally team up. And so I finally found this guy, and I fucking shit you not, he's wearing what I can only describe as like a Phantom of the Opera outfit. He's wearing a top hat, like a stovepipe Abe Lincoln hat, and the half mask, the white half Phantom of the Opera mask, and a cape. And he's sitting there, like, with one other person having this talk. And so I walked up and I introduced myself to him, and he was like, I don't even know. I don't even know, like, why you would bother. Like, why didn't you pick one of the other types of vampire? He talked all, oh, yes, and then, it's a pleasure to meet you. It's good to know that there's another of my kind here in the city. And I'm just like, fuck. So anyway, as it turns out, this was an important night that I had attended because the vampires were gathering to have elections, basically. The way that vampire society works is that every clan has what's called a primogen. So there's the clan, and then there's one vampire that leads that clan, right? And then amongst all of the clans, there's one prince, and the prince, my understanding is correct, and I guess you guys can correct me there, those of you that know about this. The prince can be either male or female, but the title is still prince. And that prince is the head of all of the vampire clans in that city. So you'd be the prince of Los Angeles or the prince of Las Vegas, right? And so it was time to do the big voting for the primogens of the clans. I guess the prince was already installed, and because there were now two Nosferatus, we had to decide between the two of us. Now, he had automatically been the primogen because he was the only Nosferatu in the city. But we had to decide who the leader of our clan was. And I didn't want to do it because I didn't know anything about the fucking game, and I didn't think I was ever coming back. But this, the Phantom of the Opera, the Phantom of the Opera walks up to me and he goes, I wanted to let you know that I'm not particularly interested in leading this clan, and I'd like you to do it. And I was like, I don't know how. And he's like, don't worry, there's nothing involved. I'm just tired of bearing the mantle of responsibility. And he's like, I'm like, okay, that's fine. So he defaulted it. He abstained him, from the voting. And so now, my first night here, nobody likes me because I'm walking around fucking with their whole la-di-da program, right? And now I get to sit at the table and make decisions. Now I'm a leader. Everybody hated that. But the whole night, it was real uncomfortable for me because, like I said, Nosferatus can make themselves invisible. So I thought, hey, I'm supposed to be kind of a spy, so I'm going to walk around and spy on people and try and get information and sell it to other. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. So there's another hand signal that you had to hold up when you were invisible. When you cast your invisibility spell, I think it was called obfuscation. When you obfuscated, you had to hold up a symbol to let everybody know, hey, don't react to me because I'm invisible. So I walked around in the house listening in, and all the conversations going on are inane. And then I noticed kind of out in front, there was a whole group of vampires standing out in front smoking. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go see what they're all talking about. And so I obfuscated and I walked to the front door and I opened the door and I close it behind me and I walk over to the group and I'm sitting there like trying to listen in on their conversations. And one of the guy goes, out of character. He says out of character and he pulls me aside and he goes, we all know you're here, right? And I was like, dude, I'm fucking invisible. And he goes, you opened the door. We saw the door open and saw it close behind you. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? You're going to stickle the new guy on something? Can you just... Whatever. So anyway, that night was not the best experience that I've ever had. And I think I'd much rather play, a little Dungeons and Dragons than ever LARP again. Suffice to say, I didn't get laid. I was nowhere near getting laid at this thing. But the house... Now, you remember the big mansion that I talked about. The house itself has another story attached to it that involves some of the vampire clan that was there that night. And I thought, what better reason to launch into that story? Because it involves the exact same house and some of the same people. So I went to that one vampire LARP, became the primogen of the Nosferatu clan, and then was never heard from again, according to their little storyline, I guess. And about a year later, a friend of mine from school, who had graduated before me, I was probably 16 or 17 at this point, so she was already graduated from high school and in college. She was 19 or 20. She called me up one day and invited me to this party. And she was like, yeah, it's in this really nice house, and it's going to be great. There's going to be a lot of really cool people there, and I really think you'd like them. You want to come? And I was like, cool, yeah, sure. Because at this point, I could drive myself. So I was like, this will be awesome. I'll go and check this party out. So I get the address from her, and I'm looking at this address, and I'm like, man, this seems really familiar to me. So I kind of find the place, and I'm like, holy shit, it's the vampire house. You know, so it's like, I don't know, 8:30, 9 at night when I show up to this thing. Excuse me. Got a little bit of a drippy nose here. Anyway, it's about 8:30, 9 at night when I show up to this thing. And I'm like, it's the fucking vampire. I've been in this house before. And so initially I was a little like, does anybody is there going to be vampires in there that are angry at me because I stopped playing their game? But I decided, I'm going to go in and check it out anyway. So I'm walking up the long, kind of windy driveway up to the big giant front double doors, and sitting on the grass off to the side of this little, walking path up to the front door was my friend Kevin, who was also friends with the girl who had invited me, and friends with me. And he's sitting kind of on a rock, on one of those decorative kind of, landscaping rocks off to the side of this path. And he's smoking a joint with his head down. He's like, just really like doesn't look happy. And so I walked up to him and I was like, what's up, Kev? And he goes, Paul, seriously, you don't want to go in there. And I was like, I've been here before. I came with Mike and we vampire LARPed here. And he was like, yeah, you just don't want to go in there. And I was like, why? He goes, I don't even want to talk about it. He's like, let's leave right now. Sit down here with me. Help me finish this joint. And let's leave. And we'll go fucking hang out at your house or something. Like, this is lame. You don't want to be here. I was like, dude, I'm going to go check it out. I came this way and I was invited. So I at least want to go say hi to the lady that invited me. It would be rude, would it not? For me to just smoke a joint with you and leave. So he said, that's okay, that's fine. Well, I'm leaving. He's like, I'm going to finish this joint, and then I am leaving. So I'll see you later. And I was like, okay, whatever. I felt a little weird. I was like, why is he being this way? And I was even more weirded out when I walked into the house. Soon as I walked into the house, it was like somebody spotted me, somebody I didn't know, and they were like, hey, who do you know? And I told them the name of the girl that had invited me, and they were like, oh my God, you're friends with her? Okay, come on in, man. He's like, have you ever been here? And I was like, kinda, yeah. He was like, I played a vampire LARP game, and they this dude that had seen me laughed. Oh yeah, he's like, those guys don't come here anymore. But he's like, let me give you the nickel tour here. I'll introduce you around. Welcome. So he takes me upstairs because right, by the front door, there's a big banister of stairs leading up to the second story. So he takes me up there and he shows me around, bathrooms, and there's rooms up here, and introduces me to a few people. And everybody he introduces me to is incredibly fucking nice, like super nice. And they're all like, oh man, yeah, welcome, yeah, blah, 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 blah. You want some weed? I was like, no, not right now, but maybe later. Oh yeah, man, fucking just come get me. We'll smoke you out. I was like, great. We go back downstairs into the living room area, and there's a full bar, like a big kind of wraparound bar. And he kind of takes me around. There's a dude, sitting on one of the big couches playing guitar, and there's some people sitting around him. They're all singing and having a good time. And he introduces me around, and he takes me up to the bar, and he introduces me. There's this lady running the bar, very attractive, very very physically fit black lady. And he goes, "This is Buffy." And she goes, "Hey." I said, "Hi, I'm Paul." And she goes, "Oh. Who do you know here?" And I told her, I said, this is the girl that invited me. And she goes, "Oh my God." She goes, "Well, welcome. Everybody loves her, so a friend of hers is a friend of ours. Sit down. What are you drinking?" And I'm like, I got to be honest with you. I don't really get to go to bars much. Why don't you surprise me? She goes, "Mudslide." I was like, okay, I don't know what a mudslide is at this point. But I'm like, cool, I'll take a mudslide. Most of the time I just drank beer or shitty cheap wine, so I was like, oh, I get an actual drink like a grown-up. This is great. She makes me a mudslide, which is, like a frozen, blended kind of chocolatey Kahlua beverage, and I'm sipping, I drink that, and to this day, it's the best mudslide I've ever had in my entire life. And I was like, oh man, that's great. And she goes, so should I keep that coming? And I was like, well, I didn't bring a whole lot of money. And she goes, this is an open bar, dude. You're not paying for this. Should I keep them coming? I was like, yes, Buffy, yes, keep them coming. And so I sit there with Buffy, and I'm drinking. I have a mudslide. And as soon as I get down to the last couple of sips, she's already got another one in front of me. Boom. And she's a really nice lady, really, really good looking and super fit. Like, that's what I remember most about Buffy, is that she was, and I'm usually not, like, attracted to women that are muscly, but she was, like, muscly in a good way. Like, not muscly like I bench, you know, muscly, but muscly like I'm a runner who lifts weights on occasion. And she was just really good looking, really funny, really nice. We sat there and talked. People would come and go to the bar and sit down, and I was having a fucking fantastic time. And I kept thinking back to Kevin, going, what the fuck was his problem? Like, these are the nicest people I've ever met. Like, I want to live here with all these fucking people. They're great. So at some point, I've got a mudslide in front of me again, and I tell Buffy, I say, you know, I need to smoke. Where's a good place? She goes, step right out on the back porch. There's tons of people out there. There's a spa. So if you brought a bathing suit, or we can go find you a bathing suit, or I can find somebody who has one for you. But there's a spa out there. There's a pool that's heated. There's a whole, you know, area for smoking. I was like, cool. So I went out on this back porch, and sure enough, jacuzzi filled with people. And as soon as I came out, it was like I came out and people were looking, and somebody over in the jacuzzi saw me and goes, hey, come on. And so I went over there, and she's like, you know, I don't think we've met. And I said, well, I'm Paul. And she goes, oh, hi, I'm, you know, so-and-so. Who do you know? And I told them once again, everybody in the spa once again goes, oh, yeah, her. She's great. Welcome, jump in, man. And I was like, I didn't bring my bathing suit. And they're like, oh, come on. I was like, I'm just going to go sit down and smoke. Thanks for the offer, though. Maybe later. And they were like, okay. So I went and sat down on this kind of like lawn furniture. And there was another dude sitting there, Asian guy. And he had like a mid to late 90s style laptop. And if you've ever seen one of those, more of like a portable word processor than a laptop that you and I. But it was a rare thing to see for me in those days. Typically, people didn't have them. And so he's sitting there with this laptop, and he's kind of typing away on it, and he's smoking. And I sit down there with him, and we strike up a conversation, and I smoke a cigarette or two. And then he's like, dude, you smoke? And I obviously, he knew I smoked cigarettes, so I knew what he was talking about. I was like, yeah. He goes, well, let me you know, go ahead and light this. And he hands me this joint from his pocket, you know, so I spark it up, and we're passing that back and forth. And I noticed at some point, that he one hand he would use one hand to smoke. He'd pass the joint to me, and then he'd kind of tap around on that laptop a little bit with this one hand. The other hand was like in his lap below the table. And no, it's not what you were thinking. Although I did find it a little weird that, you know, he only used one hand to do all his stuff. He gesticulated with this one hand. He smoked with it. He typed, you know, one-handed. So I sat there, and I got really stoned, and I'm really buzzed from all the mudslides that Buffy had poured down my throat. So I'm like in it for the long haul at this point. And but I was having a great time, so who fucking cares, right? So I'm sitting there with this Asian guy, and I'm about ready to walk back inside and go sit back down at the bar, when all of a sudden, the entire tone of the party changed. The entire tone of the party went south in a way that I'm not 100% sure I can relate to you properly, but I'm going to try. The first sign that the party had gone south for me was that the Asian guy that I was smoking with and having a great time with finally revealed his hand. The hand that he had been concealing in his lap. And he pulled this hand out at some point and laid it on the table, and he's just talking. He's in the middle of a fucking sentence. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen something like I'm about to describe. There's a Guinness Book of World Records record for the longest fingernails in the world, okay? And these are people that let their natural fingernails, not like fake fingernails, but natural fingernails just grow. They never trim them. They don't chew them. They make sure they don't get broken. And these fingernails grow. And when fingernails do that naturally, they grow to a certain point, and then they start to curl, right? And you've probably seen pictures of this. Now, and the thumbnail particularly just grows out to a certain point and then just curls under on itself and makes this big spiral kind of looking thing. And it renders the person's hand pretty much unusable. Unless they want to break these nails. Now, this guy's fingernails were like that. They weren't as long as, the longest in the world, but they were long enough that it was really fucking weird to me. And not that I wasn't enjoying the guy's company and that it would have been a problem, but that just like all of the sudden I'm high. So a little bit of paranoia maybe was kicking in, and all of the sudden it's like you and I have been talking for like an hour and smoking together, and now you reveal to me that you're going for the fucking fingernail world record. So he lays this thing on the table, and I'm trying desperately not to look at it. I'm like, yeah. It's fucking weirding me out. And so at this point, I hear a noise over from the pool spa area. And I kind of look back over my shoulder at the spa area. And the people that were in the spa smoking and drinking and having a good time and yucking it up are now all of them are fucking in the spa. Once again, I don't really have a problem with that per se, but it was just a combo effect, right? Fingernails are revealed to me, and then I look over my shoulder, and all of these nice people are all fucking. In the spa, outside of the spa, a couple of them had moved over into the heated pool and were fucking in that. It was just like it was a full-blown orgy. Now, a lot of people watching this video are probably going, Paul, why didn't you go jump in? And the answer to that question is not simple. I didn't go jump in because it freaked me out. And once again, I'm not standing in judgment of what they were doing. It's just, it was the combo effect where this very normal, very nice party suddenly became a fingernail sex party, and it was that combined with the alcohol and the copious amounts of weed in my system, and I was just like, what is happening at this? What's going on here? And so I thought, you know what? I just need to go back inside. It's obvious that things have taken a turn out here. I need to, I need to go back inside. I desperately need to get back to Buffy. So I make my apologies to the Asian man. I'm like, dude, I gotta go. I need to go get another drink. He's like, okay, man, that's cool. If you come back out, we'll smoke again or whatever. I was like, okay. And I walk back to the house and go back inside. And I open the little back door and walk in, and immediately I'm like, this is going to the bad. This has gone full fucking bad now. Buffy, the first thing I see when I walk in is the bar. Buffy is no longer behind the bar. And that was already, because she was kind of my home base at this party. I never saw the girl that I was there that had invited me. She had never shown up. If she was there, I didn't know it. But Buffy was my home base because she and I, we hit it off. Buffy's not there. I look at the living room where before I had gone out back to smoke, there were people playing guitar and laughing and hanging around on the couch. Now there are people fucking on the couch. Okay? The guitar guy is there. I recognize him, and he's plowing a girl on the couch. And then I look over towards this big mantle, this big fireplace. This place had a giant, like, marble mantled fireplace in it. And I look over at that, and there are three guys. And look, I tell this story to my friends, and I get the feeling that a lot of them think I'm what I like to call pouring on the hot sauce. Like I'm exaggerating this story a little bit. That some of this stuff didn't happen. That maybe I just saw some people fucking and got freaked out. I don't know what to tell you to make you believe me, other than I am not shitting you about this. Is one of those rare stories of mine where I don't need to add any hot sauce, okay? I don't need to exaggerate. I don't need to highlight anything. It just is what it is. So I look over at this big marble mantle, and there is Buffy. And Buffy is wearing, not what she was wearing before, which was just a nice collared, shirt. She looked like a bartender. Buffy had taken her bartender garb off and was now wearing like a dominatrix corset. Like a corset, the laced up the front thing, panties, and like stiletto boots. And, which is fine. Dress how you want. But there are three dudes chained or handcuffed or in some kind of restraint side by side with their asses facing out, pinned, and they're all naked. Every last one of them is naked and ball gagged. I can see the gag thing. And they're strapped up, and Buffy has a whip, like a cat of nine tails, a flog, or whatever you call it. And she's smacking these guys, and if they make a noise, she's yelling at them. She's like, I didn't tell you you could make a fucking noise. You keep your mouth shut. That's what the ball gag is in there for. I don't want to hear any whimpering out of you. And she's whacking these fucking guys, right? And I'm like, now, you have to understand, if I wandered into something like that now, while it wouldn't be my scene, I think I would be a little better equipped to deal with it. But at this point, I'm like 16, maybe getting close to 17 at this point. I'm a virgin, and I've just never been exposed to BDSM at all. I've never been exposed. I've never even come close to an orgy. I've never seen somebody with fingernails. This is all, and on top of it, I'm not sober. I'm fucking stoned and drunk. And so all of this is just swirling around in my head. I'm like, holy fucking shit, what happened? What happened in this place? And so as I'm staring at these dudes getting whipped, and Buffy, who was the nicest girl, whipping them and saying these awful things to them, she kind of turns around real quick and notices me standing there. And instantly, I knew that I was going to find no comfort from Buffy. I was hoping that maybe Buffy would see me and she'd go, honey, this is just a thing we do, and look, there's a safe place for you to go upstairs where nobody's into this. But she turned around and she looked at me, and all of the kindness that was in her eyes for me when we were talking and she was making me drinks and having a good time, none of that was there. And she kind of glared at me, and she said, what the fuck are you looking at? You want some of this? You want some of this? Do I need to put you up? And I was like, no, sorry, didn't mean to stare. I'll be going. And I made this decision in my head that I got to get out of here. Now, I'm a guy that's very, very careful with his alcohol and drugs. I don't drive drunk. I don't drive under the influence. It's not safe. It's not a safe thing to do. So when I drink, and even back when I was a teenager, I made sure that if I was going to get high or drink to excess, that I had a place that I could stay until I was sober. But at this point, I made this decision. I was like, if ever there was a fucking reason to break your own rules on sober driving, this is it. I got to get out of here. I got to go. And I said, but first, I want to try and find the girl that invited me here. So I walked kind of out of the living room area into the foyer, and there's a dude standing there. And I said, have you seen so-and-so? I named the girl that had invited me. He's like, yeah, I saw her go upstairs a while back. I think she's up there. I said, oh, cool, thanks. So I ran upstairs real quick, and all the doors are closed. And so I kind of walk through, and I kind of open them, and I'm not seeing or hearing anything. And then there's this one door I hear giggling coming through. So I open it and just walk through it. And there is this writhing mass of human bodies. It was like something out of Hellraiser. The sheets were undulating, and there were arms and legs hanging out of every, and I have no idea what combination of people were in there, nor did I care. I saw that, and I was like, you know what, fuck this, I'm out. And so I went back downstairs. I needed to use the restroom. I went into the bathroom to take a leak. I peed, and then I sat down on the toilet to try and collect myself, because it was the first time since the fingernails came out that I was alone. And so I just started to breathe, and as I'm sitting there breathing, I hear a noise in the shower. I look over to the shower and kind of lean back so I can see around the shower curtain, and there are two people fucking in the bathtub. So it's like, I was like, fuck it. And I got up, and I left. Now, an interesting twist on this story, as if it's not twisted enough, I left, and I never spoke to the girl that had invited me to this party about it. I never asked her. She asked me if I'd come a couple of days later when I saw her, and I was like, oh, yeah, I came, and I just, I didn't see you, so I had to bounce. And she was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Made no mention of the fact that you know, at 11 o'clock or 11:30 or whatever time it was, that house turns into a fucking, you know, sadomasochist dungeon, you know, like that. Like at 11 o'clock, everybody's like, "Oh shit, we got to put on our leather chaps and start spanking each." You know, no mention of it, and so I said, you know what, I'm not gonna say anything either. That girl ended up being my first long-term committed sexual relationship down the road. When I was 19 or 18, she's the girl that I saw at college, and if you've seen my old Q&A videos, you've heard that story. But that was her. And so after we had been dating for a couple of months, I asked her finally about the party. And she goes, "Why didn't you mention this to me before?" She was like, "I just figured you were kind of cool with it." And I was like, "No, I was not. I mean, not that it's, you know, anything wrong." And look, I'd known that she was a promiscuous girl before I started dating with her. She had been with, and that didn't bother me. But I didn't know that that was her deal. She was like, "Yeah, I just, you know, I thought about you when they were going to have one, and I thought you might be into it, and you were, you know, young, and I thought you might get laid, and all this fun stuff, and I thought you might like it." And I was like, you could have prepped me. You could have prepped me, is all I'm saying about that. But yeah, that's that's the way that I, in a roundabout way, answer the question: have I ever played a pen and paper RPG? Oh fuck. Oh my God. So somebody else asked. Hold on. Oh, Jesus Christ. Somebody else asked, "Are you currently playing any video games?" So I'm going to make this the video game Q&A session, because a lot of people ask me, "What did you think of this? And what did you think of that?" Let's talk video games for a second. Yes, I'm currently playing some video games. A few video games, in fact. I picked up quite a few video games during the Steam sale this Christmas time for like $5. I picked up Dragon Age Origins, which is a kind of an RPG. It's the spiritual successor to the Baldur's Gate franchise. Some people say that. You control a party of people and spells and wizards and swords and blood and guts and all that kind of fun stuff. But the great thing about this is that I figured out you could mod this game, right? And I'd played this game before, and this is blasphemous, but I played this game when it first came out. I bought it for the Xbox 360. Now, I know a lot of people are like, "You never played the game if you only played the Xbox version. This is clearly a PC game," and I agree. I didn't really like it all that much on the Xbox 360. Came up for, I wanted to get the PC version. It came up for sale on Steam for like $5 during the Christmas sale, and I picked it up and I started playing it. And then I realized, hey, I can mod this game. I can add things in. And so I went on this fucking like tear modding this game. And I downloaded this and I did this and blah 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 blah. And then finally there was one mod that I saw that I just couldn't resist, because one of the things that bothered me about the Xbox 360 version of the game is there are romance options in this game, right? Where some of your party members, if you do the right dialogue choices and help them with their quests, they can fall in love with you, and there's a brief sex scene. I know it's a very nerdy thing. But one of the things that always bothered me is there's a character in the game named Morrigan, who's this kind of witch, very hot. She wears this shirt that's just like a piece of cloth draped over her breasts that barely covers them. The whole game, that's what she wears, right? That's how she looks. And so the first time I played it on Xbox 360, I romanced her. Like, I helped her out, and I got her sex scene. And it always fucking pissed me off that, like, the sex scene, she's clearly not wearing a bra the entire game. Clearly. And then for the sex scene, all of a sudden, you know, and then she pushes you away, and you get a kind of a full frontal shot of her, and she's wearing a fucking, like, she put a bra on to fuck? And it's one of those times, and I was like, look, this is clearly not a game made for kids. Can we see some? What is with the embargo on digital titties? Like, what is the problem with digital nudity? I don't understand why it's so taboo. But I found this mod that lets you remove people's underwear, and it adds, you know, anatomically correct shit. So during those love scenes, if somebody's naked, they're actually naked. You get a grown-up love scene. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm installing that. So I installed it, and the problem is that it fucking made several of the NPCs around the game just randomly naked. When it's really inappropriate, like shopkeepers, not all of them, and it's not something that's like game breaking for me, but it's just a little jarring for my play experience now that when I walk into a shop, there might be a dong out in the shop there, and I want to be prepped to see a dong. And I'm certainly not expecting a dong when I walk into the armorer's shop, but sure enough, the guy that's pounding on the anvil in there that I have to go talk to, his dick is out. And so that's been a thing, but I'm enjoying the game. It is worlds better on the PC. A lot of people have asked me about Mass Effect 3 because I've mentioned it. How disappointed were you? I know you've played it. I actually haven't. Let me tell you why. I have not played Mass Effect 3. And this is going to be my first time vocalizing this because I wouldn't tell, none of my friends are interested in Mass Effect, so I don't really have anybody to talk to about this. But Mass Effect 3, Electronic Arts is the company that publishes Mass Effect 3. And they refuse to sell it on Steam. I fucking hate Electronic Arts. They're like, Hitler's Germany of the video game world. Okay? They're awful. And they refuse to sell this fucking thing on Steam. I have Mass Effect 1 on Steam with all of the DLC. I have Mass Effect 2 on Steam with all of the DLC. Mass Effect 3, they won't sell it on Steam. They want you to get their own digital distribution platform called Origin. And I want Origin to fail. I refuse. I refuse to buy something from Origin. I refuse to have my video game collection in two places. Now, I know there are people out there that are like, Origin isn't that bad. It's fine. It works. Whatever. I'm not interested. Okay? If it means me giving $1 to EA to keep up Origin and not sell things on Steam like they should, then I'm not going to do it. So I'm waiting it out. I am absolutely convinced that eventually EA will take a look at their profit and loss and go, look, this whole Origin competing with Steam thing isn't working out for us. Let's just sell our shit on Steam. And when they do that, I'll play Mass Effect 3. But I'm a very patient guy when it comes to video games. I can wait for years to play a game. I mean, there are some games when they come out, like I really want them. Like there's the new Grand Theft Auto. I think it's Grand Theft Auto 5 is coming out this year. And I will probably go buy that on day one. Like I'll probably go get it the day it comes out because I really want to play it. But if I didn't, it wouldn't kill me. You know, I waited for a long time, for example, to play Grand Theft Auto 4. I didn't own it for a very long time. I just waited. And being a patient guy gets me games like if I were to go buy it on the day it came out, I'm paying $60. It gets me the game for like $5 or $10, right? So I will wait. I will wait. I want EA to come begging on their knees for my money, and then I want them to put that shit on sale for like $10 or $15, and then on Steam, and then I will purchase the game. If you don't do that, well, I won't be buying it. Won't be doing it. Probably do it. Probably do it eventually, but I'm not there yet. And then lastly, a lot of people have asked me, are you going to start that Let's Play channel that you talked about? And I think the answer is yes. I think the answer is I think 2013 is going to be the year where I give it a shot. Because I'll never know if I enjoy doing it if I don't try to do it. And if I try it out and I don't like it, then people are pissed off at me a little bit, but I haven't lost anything, right? So I'm kind of playing around with the different screen cap software, XSplit and Fraps and all of that to try and figure out a rig that will work for me. I have a decent computer. It's not a super high-end computer, so I may need to upgrade that a little bit. But I think 2013 will be the year that I give it a try. And when I do get around to creating the channel, I will let all of you who are interested here on this channel know. I won't use this channel to pimp that channel constantly, but I will announce it and give you the opportunity to come over and check it out and subscribe if you want. So I guess stay tuned for that. Let's see. It's getting kind of long. Maybe I'll do one more here. Question: have you ever been so repulsed by a movie, comic, video game, book, etc., that it literally makes you angry just thinking about it? You know, I'm not easily repulsed by entertainment things. There have been movies that I've watched that I considered to be repulsive, like The Human Centipede, for example, I've seen, and it grossed me out. I wasn't repulsed to the point of being angry. It was just kind of like, this is gross, and the story doesn't make up for the it's just gross. Like, that's what this movie is gross. So I was repulsed by it, but not in a way that made me angry. You know, the only time I was ever wigged out by something that I watched, I mean, genuinely disturbed by it, was actually a video game I played. And I believe it was on the PlayStation 1. And it was a video game called Manhunt. And this game, to this day, is mentioned when crotchety old fucks that know nothing about video games stand up and try and blame video game violence, you know, for gun massacres or whatever. And we'll get into guns, trust me. Maybe not in this video, but I know a lot of you asked about guns. Trust me, we're going down that road. But yeah, you know, they'll say, oh, games like Super Mario Brothers and Manhunt. It still comes up, even though it was made in, like, I don't know, 2001 or something. That game disturbed me. And just the level of callous violence in it was disturbing to me. For those of you that have never played it, it is a game where you're basically the unwilling star of a snuff film. The whole story of the game, as I remember it, was that you were kidnapped by this sadistic guy who's cordoned off this area of a city. And you can't escape from it, and he's got cameras everywhere. And your job is to entertain him. He's watching you all the time. And he's filled this thing with innocent people and gang members. Or maybe there are no innocents. Maybe it's all gang members. Different kinds of nasty gang members. And it's your job to kill them in the messiest, most disgusting, brutal, painful ways possible. And I remember, like, part of the game was you could pick up a plastic bag and sneak up behind a guy, and if you got close enough, you know, you could, and it would show this very graphic depiction of you, like, wrapping the bag around his head, and he's like, gasping for air, and, like, you know, your guy would reach around and punch him in the face, and blood would fill the bag, and he'd drown in his own blood. There were just the level of callous violence in this game, and the whole time you're doing it, like, the guy who kidnapped you is over the PA system getting off on it. He's like, oh, fuck, yeah, kill him. You know? And if I were to play the game today, because violence in video games has ramped up, not only in the amount of it, but in the realism that's portrayed in that violence. It's ramped up so much since that game was made that I don't think it would be as shocking to me. But that was the first game, because video game violence was an issue at the time that game came out. People would say, oh, violent video games. But I never really considered a game violent. So the games that they would mention, I would be like, really? That's violent? Like, I mean, yeah, it's violent in a technical sense, but it's violent to the point where we're actually talking about it? Because I've seen a million movies worse than those. That was the first game that I played, and I played that game all the way through. Because as creeped out as I was by the whole atmosphere of the game, and as weirded out as I was by the level of callous violence in it, I was compelled to finish it. Like, I wanted to see how bad it got. So I finished that game. And I remember that's the only time in my entire life that I finished a game and gone, you know what? Maybe some of the people talking about, like, censoring video games or rating video games, maybe they have some. Maybe this one has gone a step too far. But yeah, that's the only. But it didn't disgust me to the point of being angry. It was just like I was taken aback at how callously violent it was. So I've been rambling on now for a while. I think I'm going to go ahead and take a break. So we'll call this episode 1. I've still got like 30 or 40 questions on the docket here. So I think you can expect several more of these from me as we go. I hope you've enjoyed, and I hope to see you next time. Peace.